The Steelers could be developing a true three-headed monster on offense. Who and how that's developing, I'll explain on today's Locked On Steelers podcast, as well as go over some of the things I learned from some of the Steelers coaches. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup only on Prize Picks. Typically, this would be crossover Thursday, but it's the Steelers bye week. And while they have off, we do not. So we continue going in about the Steelers. Now, I'm going to get to some of the things I talked to the coaches about. I did get to talk to Denzel Martin, the outside linebackers coach, and Teryl Austin, defensive coordinator. We'll get to some of the things we learned from them. But I wanted to talk offense because I've talked a lot of defense this week. And I think that there's something, the more that I look at it, that could be developing, that could make a true three-headed monster for the Steelers offense that could make them a formidable opponent even against really good defenses. Now, the first two heads of the Steelers of the Steelers potential 300 monster here are the two obvious ones, and they're the two ones they added this offseason: Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf. But typically when you think of a three-headed monster, you think of a third superstar. You think of, like with the Bengals, their three-headed monster, if Joe Burrow was healthy, would be Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. You think back to the Killer Bees. Their three-headed monster was Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell. But I think the Steelers' three-headed monster isn't exactly just one person. It's just the existence of an efficient run game. And we saw that come to life with Kenneth Gainwell. That's why I'm not going to say it's just Jaylen Warren, because I truly think this is going to be about the offensive line. This is going to be about efficiency, and it's going to be about whoever's in the backfield taking advantage of defenses that are out of position, or to times when the Steelers' offensive line wins enough to create space for them. Because when you have that going, it opens up what I truly think is the most dangerous part of DK Metcalf's game, and that's when he can win within breaking routes consistently. Because we all know DK Metcalf is huge, he's fast, he's athletic. He showed it with that 80-yard touchdown, the catch and run against the Vikings on Sunday, which was one of the more electric plays we've seen out of the wide receiver position for the Steelers in recent memory. But this is a DK Metcalf who's 6'3", 229 officially, and is known for being a bully when people try to jam him. It's not a good idea to try to jam him because you don't have his size, and he will move you out of the way if you try to, and you don't have the proper strength. But oftentimes the corners that do have that kind of strength, or players that can have that kind of strength, they don't have the speed to keep up with him, and that's why he's truly a unique weapon. But through the early weeks of the season, DK Metcalf only had one game, and that was the Jets game, where he caught two passes in between the numbers, meaning the middle part of the field. And the rest of the other two games, the Seahawks and Patriots game, he only caught one such pass. Now, it's not like it went through the roof against the Vikings. It was still three passes caught in between the numbers downfield, but it still started to show what could happen if the Steelers' run game becomes a factor. Because what happens with the Steelers' run game, when the run becomes a factor, all of a sudden the linebackers' first two steps, they're not dropping back. They're not looking for the pass. They're looking to stuff the run. And when their first two steps are forward or attacking their run fit gaps, it's opening up space for DK Metcalf to attack in the middle part of the field, unclogging those areas and making it easier for Aaron Rodgers to get the ball out quick, find DK Metcalf, and then let him do like what he did in that touchdown. One key element, or one key example I saw from the Steelers in that instance was an 11-yard completion the Steelers had inside the red zone on the on the Vikings in the first quarter, where they did a little bit of play action, and you just saw the linebackers fly up to the line of scrimmage. DK Metcalf, his corner was not trying to stick him at the line because that would have just meant them getting pushed over, and so they kind of had to back off a little bit, which sort of concedes inside leverage naturally. And then DK Metcalf gets run his slant. Aaron Rodgers says, "Oh, the linebackers are flowing away from him. I'm going to hit my guy, and then he's going to go and get more yards." And that's something that worked. And I think part of what helps make things like that work is when the run game actually is a threat, and teams have to honor it. And that's why I think the three-headed monster isn't going to be specifically Jaylen Warren or Kenneth Gainwell. It's going to be whoever's carrying the rock. And if the rock's getting moved on the ground, if the O-line's kicking butt, that's what's going to be tough for defenses to decide to do, because you're gonna need to assign help to someone who's covering DK Metcalf trying to break to the inside part of the field at some point. And often that help can just be the linebackers playing their buzz zones. But if they can't do it because they're worried about the run, it's going to open up so many more opportunities. But then the other thing is with those opportunities is that teams are then going to try to switch things up even more and try to get more help. They'll send like a robber safety down to take that away. But then when they're doing that, that's going to open up even more for Aaron Rodgers, because then he's going to see the other mismatches that present themselves. And that's where I think that the Steelers are trying to get with DK Metcalf and his passing game along with this run game. The balance that we've been talking about that they need to strike in this offense, I truly think is built around that. And that's why I think the Steelers are still kind of content with the receiving situation that they have, because DK Metcalf is the primary threat. And let's face it, the next leading guy for the Steelers is Jaylen Warren, as far as a playmaker in that respect. And that's where I think that if the Steelers can get production like yards from scrimmage right now, actually Jaylen Warren has the most yards from scrimmage, excuse me. But Jaylen Warren does have the second most receiving sorry, reading this. No, he does have the second most receiving yards. Calvin Austin has the third most receiving yards. Was reading the wrong column there. But my point being, Jaylen Warren's a threat out of the backfield. Kenneth Gainwell's a threat out of the backfield. And when those two guys are threats both as receivers and runners, it's going to make it harder for teams to focus that much more on DK Metcalf, because if teams are truly assigning double teams, like when he runs a slant, if there's a corner and a linebacker just smashing on him immediately or jumping out into his space, that's another person that can't be accounted to help the run. And then that's when you start to get in those fun guessing games where guys start jumping out of position. And then those times where we talk about where the Steelers talk about, hey, one of us was trying to jump out of their role because they were just trying to help. And, that led to another crack. That's how you put cracks in defenses. And it's with talent like DK Metcalf, when a smart guy like Aaron Rodgers is able to see that. And that's where I think the true chess matches of the future could be developing for this Steelers offense. Because if Aaron Rodgers is able to get consistently good offensive line play from this offensive line, if he's able to have an efficient run game in most games, that's going to put teams in a tough bind, and it's going to free up DK Metcalf to be that much more dangerous for bigger plays over the middle. And I truly think that's a big part of what this offense wants and needs to be moving forward when you look at what they're building. So the three-headed monster isn't necessarily one person. It's the existence of that efficient run game. And listen, we still don't know if it's going to be efficient. There was one weekend where it really worked for them. They need to get back on it and make sure that it can work for them against a tough Browns defensive front. But again, I really think that there's potential here for this passing offense, for this overall offense to manifest. Because if I look at how the Steelers have done it so far, they're not doing terribly on offense right now. Granted, they rank 16th in points scored, so they're not exactly lighting it up, but they are trying to do that. They are doing their best as far as creating opportunities across the board. But now as the season goes on, you want to see some of those strengths come to the front a lot easier. And that's where I think this could really help the Steelers, is if they get that ground game going, it's going to open up the middle part of the field, which is the real part of the field that you want DK Metcalf attacking. And if you get those things working in unison and you're healthy, man, that's a great way to live if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, because then you're going to start seeing more and more production and more from other guys because of that being such a factor. So watch out, because the three Steelers might have their own three-headed monster on offense in development. We're going to talk about the defense, including the Steelers moving around TJ Watt. Are they? Is it enough? We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for all the action with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get your chance to win $300 in bonus bets only at FanDuel. This episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive it with confidence through almost any season. Like the players, they sweat every detail, because when you make every moment count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here talking about the Steelers. I want to flip back to the defense, and I know I've talked a lot of defense this week, but we got a chance to talk to two defensive coaches on Wednesday at the Steelers facility. Now, mind you, I'm still a little jet lagged, so we're getting there. That's why this episode didn't appear right at midnight. I needed some time to rest and recover before I put it all together. But we got a chance to talk to some guys, and y'all know Teryl Austin, defensive coordinator. If you don't know Denzel Martin, you're going to in a little bit, because we're going to have a clip of him talking here. But there was a topic that spawned last year, because during that Giants game, the Steelers moved TJ Watt like a couple times, and then one time when they didn't move him, the Giants forgot to assign a double team, and it led to TJ Watt getting a huge sack of Daniel Jones that helped them win that game. And bada bing, bada boom. There was a lot more talk about, hey, they need to move TJ Watt around more to create chaos. And we saw a pushback from the Steelers against that all last season, all this offseason, and was reminded this is why it wants to be on the side that he wants to be on. And it seems like that is the plan for the Steelers, is to keep him normally on his side. And I will say right now, they are almost at the total amount of times he lined up on the opposite side of where he normally lines up on defense. And for those who are unsure, TJ Watt is typically the left outside linebacker, which allows him to line up over the right tackle traditionally. And, but over time, teams started to double and triple team him and chip him more than anyone else, and that has made his job more difficult. So there's been talk about the Steelers. Should the Steelers be moving him around more? Should they get him around so that you have to guess where he's at? And the Steelers seem resistant against that. They've been like, you know what, you guys may think that, but we don't. We think that there's ways to make it work and to use him as a weapon that's going to make things work for him, but also make things work out for his teammates. We got a chance to for Denzel Martin to answer a question on that and answer a few things, because one, he'll talk about TJ Watt and what they plan, why they've kind of not moved him around still to a high degree, like Myles Garrett gets moved around and other guys. But listen to Denzel Martin explain that, and then also dive in on how excited he is to have his trio of outside linebackers all still on the team. Here's Steelers outside linebackers coach Denzel Martin.
When TJ gets chipped, then doubled or whatever, what does that attention do for you guys just with your blitz schemes, freeing up guys like Patrick Queen and safeties and things like that?
It's awesome. There's just opportunities for people when you see three people traveling with TJ. You see Jack Sawyer, if you go back and watch his first career sack, he had three people go with TJ and he went right to the quarterback. So, I mean, it's just if you're aware of what you're doing, you know what you're doing, you're going to make plays over there to his side of the ball. And it's just stuff that we're doing on defense to make that happen.
It does seem there's at least you guys are cranking up the heat a little more in terms of blitzes. What about your kind of team or your group specifically fits the personality of a team that can blitz a lot and take advantage of it?
We just like to get after the passer. Blitzes sometimes get us our one-on-ones and the things that we want and help us get to the passer easier, but it's all exciting. We like to, that's Blitzburgh. That's what I've known since I've been here, and we just want to keep going.
There's a lot of outside talk last year about talk not for the organization, but about like, oh man, they need to move TJ Watt around. He didn't get that many sacks at the end of the year. In the first couple games he didn't, but now you're seeing the sacks coming, and TJ's still not moving around a whole lot. What's different now that maybe that you guys were like, hey, we see this is going to work?
Yeah, we just have he has a willingness. He's okay to move. You'll see him in games. He'll move sides, but he's the best in the world at what he does over there on that one side. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's necessarily a negative for him. But moving around and all that type of stuff, it just messes with the offensive line coaches and the things that they have to get prepared for to wonder where he'll be at on certain situations. But he's the best in the world doing what he does over there on that left side, and I want him to stay doing what he does best.
I imagine you guys probably have a few extra things you haven't even been able to call up because Alex hasn't been healthy, while Nick's been healthy, while everyone else has been healthy. What's the excitement that you have with this collection of pass rushers that you guys have this year?
Very, very excited. Just want to get all those dudes together. That's why we got them all, so we can have all four together. Man, I think it's gonna be good stuff for us on defense.
So a few things about what Denzel Martin said there. Now, I want to call it back to when I was asking him about moving TJ Watt around, and not just him, also Carl Dunbar, the defensive line coach, because they kind of work in tandem with Teryl Austin about the pass rush plan. They were both, the whole team was resistant on the idea of, oh yeah, we're just going to move TJ Watt around, line him up everywhere, because what Denzel Martin said, when TJ Watt lines up over the right tackle and he's in his position, he is the best in the world at doing that at that spot. And he can move in other spots. We do see him move in other spots and be effective from those spots, but you want him at his most comfortable level. And so what the Steelers have done, and this is why it's a great question from Nick Farabaugh, that, you know, you were hearing some of his questions get asked to Denzel Martin there. You know, the increased blitz rates of the Steelers, how is that helping them do this? And the thing is I think that's where the Steelers have ramped things up and changed things up. It's not necessarily that the Steelers need to move TJ Watt around. They need to move other people around and find ways to create, while TJ Watt is either the distraction that takes up three blockers, or he's left one-on-one on his favorite side, and he is just an unstoppable force of nature. And I think that's the thing. TJ Watt can still be that unstoppable force of nature in his normal spot for a few years. And that's what the Steelers are kind of looking at right now. And so what they've done is they said, let's ramp up the blitzes. Let's ramp up the pressure. And to Denzel Martin's point, you know, he talked about since he's been there, they've been Blitzburgh, they've been Heatsburgh. Well, as we talked about, that Blitzburgh identity kind of took a step back under Teryl Austin, and Denzel Martin predates Teryl Austin as a defensive coordinator, of course, for the Steelers. He's been with the team for years, you know, and so when I look at what the Steelers have been doing that's different this year, you're seeing it already in this early production. For example, right now, the Steelers have the second most sacks in the NFL, only behind the Denver Broncos right now, because the Steelers have 14 sacks. Yeah, 14 sacks. The Broncos have 15. And also tied with the Steelers for second are the Lions and the Rams. So they're in good company here. But I also want to point out what's also contributing to that, and it's the blitz rate. Because right now, ProFootballReference.com has the Steelers with the fourth highest blitz rate in the NFL, actually tied with the Minnesota Vikings. So a lot of people were saying, why you need to get Brian Flores. I think they're doing some similar things. They both blitz at 35.8%. By the way, that's up for the Steelers from last year when they were blitzing about 25.9%. And that's something that we said that we're seeing in training camp, them to be more aggressive, because that's the way that they're going to free up TJ Watt, not moving him around, not making him get out of his comfort zone, not making him do things that are going to put him in positions where he can't be at his most elite, but by making it so hard that if you ignore everything else and just focus on TJ Watt, these other things are going to be the things that take you out as an offense. And you want to keep teams guessing, you want to do that, but I think that that's where TJ Watt's true strength is coming in the Steelers, is that he's such a force when he's there that you have to either devote almost all your attention to him or risk letting your whole game getting blown up by him. And so the Steelers have found ways to counter how teams are doing that. And I think that's playing out right now. So, again, when you look at how many times he's moved around last year, I believe he was on the right side, so lining up over the left tackle for the defense. He was at the right edge sort of position, whether it's right outside linebacker or right edge, 11 times. And through 4 games, he's already been on that side about 8 times when you look at how he's lined up for the Steelers. So he's already on track to get more sides on the opposite side of the ball, on the other side of the formation than he was last year. And they do want to keep you guessing a little bit, but I don't think that that's the main stratagem to get TJ Watt open. It's going to be stuffing the run so they can force 3rd and longs and then get your pass rush going, dial up the blitzes, dial up the mix-ups, force people to communicate, force offensive lines to communicate, force quarterbacks to think under pressure. And that's where I think TJ Watt is going to get freed up more and more as time goes on, because teams are going to have to start respecting what the Steelers are doing. And I mean, look what Nick Herbig did with the stunt twist that he did with Cam Heyward to force that intentional grounding on the Vikings. And granted, the Vikings were going through it at their time with their own injuries, but I think that's the ticket here for the Steelers, is if they want to be an elite defense by the end of the year, they need TJ Watt, Nick Herbig to be, and Alex Highsmith, he returns to be big time playmakers and big time playmakers together. And that's why I think that they're not going to try to move around TJ Watt too much, because they want him to be comfortable. They want him to be comfortable with his teammates, and they'll move the other guys around because they're not the most dominant player in the NFL at that specific position. So all that to say, I think that the Steelers, I was on board here for the Steelers moving around TJ Watt more after last year and saying, okay, they can do this. They never did. They kind of just kept him where he was. And I think that it was kind of just an intentional, just be like, yep, we don't see it the way the rest of you guys see it on social media. We're going to be getting ready for this game. And I think that's where the Steelers, maybe they have something there. Maybe they're right. Maybe they don't need to move TJ Watt around, but we'll see as the season rolls on, because that's when people started to figure out ways to sort of neutralize him in certain matchups. Granted, he was injured later in the year, but I think that's what the Steelers have to try to do their best to try to get things going for TJ, is don't have to ask him to move too much, but find a way to move everyone else around him to the point where there's just some really, really tough decisions for offensive linemen and quarterbacks to be able to read your defense and figure out what you're doing. And so if the Steelers do that, I think it'll go a long way to how they're trying to free up more opportunities for TJ Watt, or free up more opportunities for other people, while TJ Watt's taking up triple teams, kind of like he did on Nick Herbig's pass rush that led to the intentional grounding on the final drive and ultimately set the Vikings back. But we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about another Wisconsin guy. That's Keanu Benton. He's taken a lot of heat on this show and everywhere for his performance in the first couple games. We'll see what he's got to say, or we'll see what Teryl Austin had to say about Keanu Benton, and what I think could be interesting to see about him moving forward. Next on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you, this show is also brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can often be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed up by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price, plus all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals available. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100 to go. I love zone deals too. You pick the section, game time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I could have. I've bought tickets before. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms and conditions apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here, staying focused on the defense. I'm going to talk about another Wisconsin guy, and that's Keanu Benton. And again, we grade honestly here. We give our honest opinion. I thought Keanu Benton had 2 really, really bad games to start the season. Maybe even 3, actually. But that 4th game against the Vikings was no bad game. He did his job. He stuffed the run. He got after the quarterback. He showed his potential at the nose tackle position. And let's talk about that, because that was kind of the other big thing that people were getting on the Steelers about. Like, oh, I don't see this. I don't see that. And all the complaints that everyone thinks that they know more than everyone else when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm saying that this is definitely the way that everything should work and that the Steelers are right about everything. But the Steelers have created and constructed multiple really talented, good defensive lines over the years. And I think that there's a potential for Keanu Benton that hasn't fully been tapped into yet, but he's working on. And they're, in fact, kind of putting him in the situation to work on it, because they will hope that he can be an answer there. That's the nose tackle position now. Many people have come out and said, like, oh, man, they're seeing Keanu Benton get mushed down the line or just completely blown off the ball. And they're saying, man, maybe he's too small. Maybe he can't do that. Put Yahya Black at the nose. But the Steelers seem adamant about it. Cam Heyward was, when I asked him about it weeks ago, he was like, no, Keanu does this, and we need that right here and right now. And I think you're looking at the Steelers defense and you're saying, like, you need his run stuffing ability, to kick in. You need his ability to rush the passer to change the course of passing plays. And I think there's potential for that. But the Steelers have been very, persistent in believing in him and giving him a chance. Here's Teryl Austin answering questions about Keanu Benton, defensive line in the future, for what might happen at the nose tackle position. Again, here's the Steelers defensive coordinator, Teryl Austin.
I think he always approaches things the same way. He's a good worker. He's a conscientious young man. And I think the biggest thing that happened was he finished some plays this week. There's been times he's been, during the course of the season, he's been solid, but not spectacular. He's been really active, but he hasn't finished. And I think this week he finished, and it really showed. You saw like he was impactful because he finished those plays. And so that was the challenge. I actually challenged him to, how stack those games, stack games like that, because you do have the talent to do it. And if he can stack games like that, along with the way the rest of the D-line's playing and the front seven, man, that's going to be good for us.
As a coordinator, you guys have kept Benton at the nose, even when he struggled early. But again, he came through big on Sunday. What has been behind the plan to keep him there instead of moving him around in like a 3-tech or 4-tech role more traditionally with his size?
Because I think we have with the young guys coming along, getting Derrick and you got, like I said, you got Yahya. That allows him to stay in there, and then we have those young guys that we can move out there. And then Daniel's backing him up. So instead of moving him around, let's let these young guys continue to flourish and grow and allow him to be stable in there. And so I think it's worked out. I know he can do those other things. We know he can, but I think if we can keep him locked in and consistent at one area, that he'll continue to grow, and we'll be able to stack more games like he did last week.
So I think what you're seeing here is the Steelers committing to a plan for the defensive line with Keanu Benton that kind of goes back to something that they created in the 2010s, because I think the most complete defensive line that we've seen in the last 10 years, and who knows, maybe this line will replace that with the rise of Harmon and Benton and Black and everyone like that. But I think the most complete in the defensive line the Steelers have had was when they had Cam Heyward, Stephon Tuitt, and one Javon Hargrave, who, by the way, played for the Vikings this past weekend. And Hargrave, as a player, is smaller, significantly so, than Keanu Benton. And so when a lot of people are saying Keanu Benton's too small to play the nose, that's what Hargrave did. And the key to having a player like that, while having big guys at the the 3 technique, at the 4 technique, at the 4-eye, in B gap or so, the key to that is I think you want those guys being guys that can knock down passes, take on double teams, between the guards and the tackles, and work towards the edge. But the guy in the middle, you want him to kind of be just the scrappy dude that just gets in there and is technical, is quick, is fast, can take advantage of centers and guards that aren't as quick off the ball. And I think that's Keanu Benton's game. He is a bully when he gets going. But I think that a big part of his game is also his quickness off the ball, along with his size. Javon Hargrave, they used to call him Jay Wobble. Heck of a player and still a heck of a player, but you just look at the size differences when you look at them just when they came into the draft. And again, Javon Hargrave doing this 7 years before Keanu Benton. But when Hargrave, that guy's 6'1", Benton 6'3", going on 6'4". Both of them weighed 309 pounds coming into the draft. And Hargrave was, a little bit faster, than Benton. But the bottom line was the size. Benton has 2 inches on Hargrave, and Hargrave was a really good nose for the Steelers. They just couldn't afford to pay him because they were paying Cam Heyward, TJ Watt, and eventually Stephon Tuitt, and they put them in a rough spot. So, I think that's part of that what's happened there. But again, it wasn't his lack of size that made him a liability. He was never a liability, and I think that's where the Steelers are hoping Keanu Benton can get to. If he can get to the point where he's consistently winning with technique in the middle of the line, that he's getting after it, that he's being physical, and he's able to show that his technique is improving, he continuously win there. That's going to mean a lot, I think, moving forward for the Steelers, because then you're going to see the confidence start to come from him. You're going to see them trust him to do a little bit more here and there. And I think there's going to be a lot to appreciate about this team if they keep on the trajectory that they are on right now. And Keanu Benton could be one of them. Peyton Wilson could be another. But ultimately, I just think that the reason I wanted to look this up and I wanted to look at it is one of the big pushbacks about Keanu Benton being a nose tackle is his size. And there's been other nose tackles out there that have played with worse, disguises or that have played not in the same situation as Keanu Benton or have been smaller than Keanu Benton. So that's not the issue. The issue is Keanu Benton has to execute. He has to win with his hands. He has to be quick off the ball. And it takes time to coordinate that while also anticipating how teams are trying to double team you. It's not just enough to see a double team. You got to know how to counter it. There's certain techniques to do. And that's where Keanu Benton, I think, started to clean up in this game. Did he clean it up? We'll see over time. But I did think that we did see a step up from him. And if you get a step up from him and Derrick Harmon continues to play well in his early years and Cam Heyward continues to wreck shop and Yahya Black's still there and Dan Aquali's still, the Steelers could be in the prime position when it comes to defensive linemen moving forward. And that could be a real big opportunity for the Steelers, in the coming years to be that trench controlling team. And if Keanu Benton takes a step forward, there'll be another step closer to that. But hey, we still got a lot to cover before we get to the Steelers' next game, which is next week against the Browns at home. But don't worry, we will be getting you all through the bye week. We still got other things. I want to say this right now. If you're still listening, first of all, thank you. You're a real one. But if you're still listening, we are going to bring back the Locked On Steelers call-in line, because we don't often do call-ins during the season, but we will do call-ins for a day on the Monday show and maybe the Tuesday show. We'll see. But we'll open the phone lines back up for you to get your questions in on for the Monday show. Call Sunday, by the way. This won't be recorded on Monday. It'll be recorded on Sunday. As always, you can call the Locked On Steelers call-in line at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from, keep your question under a minute, and we'll try to get you on the show. Again, we're gonna try to fit this into Monday, since this is the bye week and pretty much the only time I'm gonna have time to take questions. So we'll do that. So if you have a question, call in with it. I'll try to catalog it, and we'll see who we get to get their answers. Their questions answered on the show moving forward. for the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. Same handle everywhere at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me here every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you all tomorrow as we finish up the week here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.